I'm sort of a rootless person in a way. I go back and forth from New York to California. And I'm a California person. I was born here, I grew up here, I studied here, but I'm from somewhere else too. But I think I'm tri-coastal, and maybe there are quite a lot of those too, actually. I did work in Italy for nearly 8 years. So that was a big interlude in my life, one could say. But I wanted to come back to the States, which is why I applied to UCI. And those 2 years were kind of transformational in my life. I had been a painter in Rome, but California was different. It's a different art scene and different people. And I thought, I just need to get accustomed again to the United States. I felt not so connected with California art directions, and thought I want to go to New York because I feel like I actually want to be painting, and I think that there is more of a climate for painting in New York, which I was pretty wrong about in a way, because the minimalists declared that painting is no good anymore, useless. Why do that? And in fact, some directions in painting seem to be exhausted, worn out. So I'm there. I've moved myself to New York, and what am I going to do? Not the painting that I made in Italy. I need to find something else. So I experimented with drawing, with putting colors together, and then at a certain point I felt everything I do is something I've already seen, that I've either done it myself, someone else has done it. There's no way, I'm not finding a way to go ahead. So I woke up one morning and said, well, if I can't put things together, I won't. I had considered what is the kind of simplest kind of artwork one could make. Paper and pencil seem basic, and I will use pencil on paper in a most basic vertical stroke. And I began the series that I have kept up intensively at some moments in those first years, and intermittently in other years. I make these drawings. Anyway, I'm talking about 1972 when I began with the pencil drawings, but I soon thought, I might paint with vertical strokes too, and see what happens there. So I happened to have at that point a collection of acrylic colors. I stretched some canvases 4 feet square and thought I'll paint on each one of these, filling in a space with vertical brush strokes. I think that the way I come to a new series is very idiosyncratic. Things happen that feel to me like part of my work that have nothing to do with painting. I would walk in the town, and there was a big park, and I would walk in the park and watch people as whatever they're doing in the park, and the swans on the lake, and people I met, and then I wrote a story about that. So that story, called The Lake, from that period of time becomes a part of my writing work, because I do write quite a lot, and I've written quite a lot of small stories that originated from some event like that. This living in foreign places gave another dimension to my mind. I came back to New York and then began another kind of central series of mine, which was an extended grayscale. I had begun to think about what else can I examine besides the palette that an artist might use, which the acrylic paintings provided, and somehow went to this device that industrial designers use. But I thought, I will make as many paintings for this series, small paintings, 22 inches square, as I can perceive the difference between, and I don't know how many that will be. So I began stretching up small canvases, painting them. One is white, the last one is black. In between, they're all shades of gray, and I spent probably 10 months on this series because I had to look and see, is this lighter, darker? I had compared this one to that one. And finally, there turned out to be 106 pieces. I declared it finished. Well, the next step was to find how to make paint. And I had located, someone had given me or pointed out a book about, it's kind of a recipe book for artists, what the different pigments are and how they're made and how they function and how to use them in oil or how to use them in other media. And so I thought, well, I'll use this book to direct me. And at a shop in downtown south of Soho, they were selling pigments, and I bought quantities of, well, small quantities at first, of all the pigments I could find. I think I had 56 different pigments. And so I wanted to try all of those. So I tried them first on small using a pigment, it's very important to get the oil solidly into the paste of pigment to make paint. So each little granule of paint needs to be somehow coated with oil. And you use a tool called a muller to grind the pigment into the paint or the paint into the pigment, whichever way it goes. So I did that, and I painted small paintings of each of those colors. But then when I came back to New York, and I'm beginning this series I mentioned, the larger paintings, many of the colors I chose were red. Some were blue, and a lesser number were yellow of some kind. But they all had the same dimension and the same process, and I decided to call that series the red paintings. So they're all red paintings, even if they're blue, they're called a red painting. And that confuses some people sometimes, but for me they all belong to this group of so-called red paintings. I'm always interested in the name. The name of the work for me is extremely important. If the work doesn't have a name, it almost doesn't exist. It has to have a name and it should have a date, because then I know what it is. If I don't have those, it's an orphan. It's just kind of lost. For various reasons, my painting work has taken a pause, and I haven't painted very much. The most recent paintings are the shade paintings, of which you have an example here in the far wall. You see these white prepared paintings of the canvases on the wall that are not painted. That's the beginning of my next series. And I haven't begun it because I felt a little uncertain about what I want it to be. And I don't want to begin it until I have an idea of where it's going. So there's work to do, both preparing exhibitions and I really want to get back to painting, actually, because the great pleasure about painting is not always the application of paint, but it's the conception of what is this painting going to be, what will it represent, and will I like what happens when it's done? And I won't really know until it is done, so I don't know.